All right, UFC on ESPN 39 is in the books. Let's go ahead and talk about it. All right, let's go ahead and start with the main event. RDA versus Fiziev. Fiziev beating RDA via TKO in round number 5 via punches, 18 seconds into that round. So what happened here? So it seemed like RDA's game plan, to me it seemed like RDA was trying to get Fiziev up against the cage and kind of grapple a little bit, get him more tired, that way he takes some of the pop out of the punches. And I thought that he did a pretty good job of that throughout the fight, but I just don't think in terms of actual effectiveness throughout the fight, it really did everything he needed it to. Don't get me wrong, I think that Fiziev was definitely getting tired, though I don't think it has as big of effect as RDA was maybe hoping that it would. In turn, the fight still ended up being mostly contested in the striking exchanges, where Fiziev was definitely getting the better of RDA, though RDA did miss quite a few opportunities as Fiziev was really biting on the feints and RDA didn't really capitalize on it. So I wonder if that's something that is just he's missing in his older age. He is 37 at lightweight. That's not young for lightweight. Or if maybe he was just afraid to go for it and maybe put himself at risk of getting landed on. I'm not entirely sure. That being said, I know that Fiziev's takedown defense looked really good throughout the fight. I feel like RDA went in there and really wanted to test it, and he did, and I think that Fiziev mostly passed. He got controlled a little bit, but not horribly. And the only other things I have to talk about as far as Fiziev is concerned are that he does bite on those feints a lot, like I stated earlier, and that he might have a little bit of a cardio issue. I don't think it's horrible, but he definitely got tired in that 4th round. He made up for it in the 5th, so maybe it was just, he needed a second wind or something similar. That being said, I think that if that gets brushed up, he will really, really be a force to be reckoned with in that division. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what's next for each guy. Let's go ahead and start with Fiziev. So he was number 10, and RDA was 7. So he'll probably take RDA's spot at number 7. The people above him are Dariush, Chandler, Makhachev, Gaethje, Poirier, and Oliveira. I think Poirier and Gaethje make a lot of sense. Chandler would be pretty fun, and I think that Dariush still maybe needs some unfinished business with another person up higher than him, so I don't think that would be the move. But Poirier and Gaethje, I think, are both really fun fights. They're mostly strikers, and we'd get to see how Fiziev's cardio holds up against other strikers that maybe aren't trying to wrestle as much. Poirier might try and wrestle a little bit, but I think that Gaethje would be completely standing. I'd like to see how Fiziev's speed stacks up against these guys, because I feel like he's a lot faster than Gaethje and Poirier. He won't be able to leave himself open as much to strikes like he did against RDA, because if he does that, Poirier and Gaethje would definitely punish him for it. They're great counter strikers, and they would definitely not let a big opening like that go to waste. Let's go ahead and talk about what's next for RDA now. I think the fights that make the most sense would probably be Tony Ferguson or Conor McGregor. Tony, because they fought in the past, they're both at pretty similar spots in their careers, being older guys, probably done with title aspirations at this point. And they had a fight a long time ago, and it'd be really interesting to see how it goes now. The reason why the Conor fight sounds fun is because they have unfinished business. They were scheduled to fight. It didn't ever happen. RDA got injured, and they had a little bit of a interaction during the Poirier-McGregor 3 card whenever RDA weighed in as a backup fighter. I think that'd be fun too. And I think that Conor and RDA are probably around the same spot in their career, probably a little bit older, not really ready for a full, title push anymore. I think that'd be a great fight for both guys, even though RDA isn't necessarily the name value that Conor's probably looking for. That being said, I think we need to talk about RDA's career overall. This guy has fought everyone. In just his last few fights, he fought Fiziev, Moicano, Felder, Chiesa, Edwards, Kevin Lee, Usman, Covington, Robbie Lawler, Neil Magny, Tony Ferguson, Eddie Alvarez, Donald Cerrone, Anthony Pettis, Nate Diaz, Benson Henderson, Khabib, Donald Cerrone again. He's fought so many names that we are all very familiar with. We should be thankful that someone like RDA fights in the UFC. Not many guys would take these types of just aggressively difficult, consistent scheduled bouts, but he constantly does it. And he comes in and fills in on short notice. He takes short notice opponents. Not a lot of guys exist like that in the UFC anymore. We really need to be thankful that we've gotten to see RDA fight so many guys. No, he didn't come out on the winning end of all of them. He got TKO'd by Eddie Alvarez. He lost to Tony, lost to Covington and Usman. But still, he went out and he showed his best every time, even if the odds were stacked against him, especially against the bigger guys at welterweight. I mean, Colby and Kamaru are gigantic welterweights, and he still fought them. He still did his absolute best. He took down Colby and even took a round from him. So I think we really, really need to be thankful about just RDA's career overall and everything that he did for the sport. He's been a great ambassador for the sport. He's been nothing but a pleasure to watch. His fights are most of the time pretty exciting. Later in the career, he did lean on the wrestling a little bit more. But even still, he's got fast hand speed, excellent striking. Just really want to, throw it out there for RDA, because I feel like everybody won't look back and look at him the way they need to. We really need to appreciate just how good of an ambassador RDA was for the sport. Not to imply that he's done or anything, but just to really put into perspective how good of an ambassador he was for the sport whenever he does eventually retire. Not saying that he will currently. All right, next we'll go ahead and touch on the co-main event, Bohio versus Petrosian. Bohio winning via unanimous decision, 29-28, and then 30-27, 30-27. This was just an overall grappling showcase for Bohio. He did a really good job at controlling the action. Even on the round that he dropped, he still controlled fairly well throughout the entire fight. There's not too much to touch on with this one. I'm not going to matchmake these guys because they're still pretty fresh. That being said, it's nice to see another great up-and-coming grappler in the middleweight division, because the division is pretty strike-heavy. So it's really nice to actually have a grappler up-and-coming now. Alrighty, we're going to go down a little bit farther on the card and skip to Zahabi versus Turcios. This was a unanimous decision win for Zahabi in the bantamweight division. What can we take from this fight? There were a couple of things that I saw that I think could be worked on from Turcios that would really help him in the future of his career. I do want to say that it's not that this is what caused him to lose. I feel like Zahabi was pretty much doing, the stick and punishing him for overextending and things of that nature. So I don't think that Turcios was necessarily through the fight by the way he was fighting, but just that there are some things he can iron out to make sure that a performance like this doesn't happen again. I think that he really needs to calm down on some of the wildness of his strikes. Throughout the fight, he was kind of throwing out front kicks to, I think, manage his distance. But overall, I just don't think that they were very effective at doing that. I mean, they kept Zahabi away, but they didn't really open up any meaningful offense for Turcios. I think that he probably would have been a bit better keeping it a little closer. That being said, the main thing to talk about here is just Zahabi overall taking advantage of every opportunity he needed to punish Turcios in this regard, and really just kind of skated his way to a decision. It was pretty clear to me. 29-28 is fine. I think that's a good score card for it. After the first round, Zahabi really kind of took control over things. These are still young guys, so there's still a lot of room for growth in both of them. By no means is Turcios done. I think that he's got a long career ahead of him. He just really needs to iron out some kinks. For Zahabi, I think that anybody in the lower top 15 is probably a good matchup for him at this point. And for Turcios, I really think that it would be helpful for him to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit, maybe get the wildness a little bit toned down, and then come back after that. The next fight we're going to go ahead and talk about is Brundage versus Gore. This is a middleweight contest. Brundage winning via knockout in round 1, 3 minutes and 50 seconds into that round. Just a great KO from Brundage. Just a great setup punch that knocked Gore clean out. I initially had Gore winning via knockout in my prediction, but I guess Brundage just has some good knockout power and landed just a great punch on him. What I will say about this is that both guys are still really young. There's tons of room for growth for both of these guys still. And I will say that Gore probably needs to take some time off and regroup a little bit. He's 0-2 in the UFC after that, his great run in Tough. These guys are just a different breed, man. That's all I mean, that's really all there is to say about it. You can't go in expecting what worked there to work here, because these are some of the most elite guys on earth. I'd say that Brundage probably deserves a top 15 opponent too, and I'd like to see definitely more out of him. His last loss was against Nick Maximov, which is mostly a wrestling contest, so I'd say probably maybe toss him against another striker or see if his wrestling's got a little better since he fought Nick. But yeah, great performance for Brundage. I think we'll see more of Gore in the future. Not much more to say on it than that. And the last fight we're going to talk about today is going to be Johnson versus Malarkey, which is a split decision victory for Malarkey, not a robbery. I think that it was just such a close fight. Either guy could have won. The judges ended up giving Malarkey the nod in the end, and that's okay. Just an absolute amazing, fan-friendly fight. The hand speed of Johnson, even at this age, is still just remarkable. He was putting on a really good performance in that first round, ended up getting put on some skates, got hurt, a couple of times throughout the fight. And I think overall, just the fact that Malarkey was able to really sting Johnson is what kind of put the stamp on the performance for him, which kind of gave the judges a reason to give Malarkey the win. So let's talk about what's next for both guys. For Malarkey, I think that you could probably put him against Dan Hooker if Hooker doesn't end up actually fighting Guida. I think that fight is happening, but I'm not entirely sure. Additionally, you can throw him against, maybe someone who's not in the top 15, but I think Hooker would be fun. Hooker is on a little bit of a skid, but I think that it would still be a good fight. As far as Johnson is concerned, he's had such a long career. He's almost a 50-50 fighter in the UFC now. I'm thinking it could potentially be time to hang it up, but I wouldn't be angry if he had a couple more fights, especially after a performance like this. I really think he still has some to give and could put on some pretty good performances against other fighters. But honestly, I'm not really sure who a good option would be. So how about you guys let me know in the comments? All right, guys, that is going to do it for my UFC on ESPN 39 recap. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know if you'd like to see more of these. I'm interested in doing these after each fight night. I really think that it's fun to talk about these, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Thank you.